Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Georgiana with Expressions Craft Studio, and in our last video we made this snowflake, and we are going to try to do 10 of them, so that'll be one a week before Christmas. So this was the last video, our first snowflake. There we go. So today we're going to kind of work on the same basic starting point where we start off with 6 of these little football shapes or eye shapes or marquee shapes, whatever you want to call them. And we are going to take and we're going to fill each one with this little curly, I don't know what the name of this is. If anybody does, I probably did at one point, but I can't remember. But this little curly shape. So what I'm doing is I'm using half a strip, and my strips are 10.5 inches long because I use my Cricut to cut them. And you're going to do a nice pre-coil on it or relax it so that it is really curly this time, because you want these to curl up nice and tight and stay that way, because this is a pretty small area that we're working with. So I generally start by starting about 1/4 of an inch down on my strip, flipping that over, and then I'll curl it 4 or 5 times, or 4 or 5 twists. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I pull that off, and I go down, I kind of just guess about 1 inch, I guess, roughly. And then I'm going to do 4 or 5 turns again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Pull that off, and then I just kind of split the difference here with what's left and turn it until I'm kind of up underneath this second loop or coiled piece. So trying to kind of see where I am here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that was probably 4.5 really. So then you end up with something like this, and it's all kind of curled up on itself here. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get it to where it'll kind of sit. There you go. And then you're going to take and you're going to stuff it into this little marquee shape. So I kind of like to do a little bit of trying to kind of form it a little bit before I start stuffing it in there, just to make it a little easier on myself. I'm just opening that up a little bit and kind of starting in the middle and kind of pushing it toward one end. And it is a little fiddly, I'm not gonna lie, but it kind of makes it look nice and lacy on the inside. There we go, that one wasn't too bad. Now currently these are not glued in, so I will need to do that. So what we're going to do next is I think we're going to make maybe this piece here. Did I do that on a comb or the husking board? I am no longer certain. Probably the comb. Well, that was done on a comb. And they're the same thing, so it's just flipped the other way. Okay. So you can do that, you can, kind of take your pick, but I think I like this one. So we're going to do that. We're just going to keep it nice and easy. So that should be a whole strip. And let's not make too many colors in this one. We'll do this blue again. So you'll need 6 of these. And how did I say it? I did that on the comb. Where did I put? There it is. Buried it underneath all my paper. So I think I actually did these bigger, on the bigger end. So again, I'm using a whole strip. Which is 10.5 inches, and I'm just trying to get it. There we go. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna loop it around 2 of the teeth, and I'm gonna glue. We're gonna pull it up here. It's wanting to twist on me. It's because I don't have a very good hold of it. Here we go. Try that again. There we go. So I'm just going to wrap it over and let that glue take hold. Just kind of want to even up the edges of my paper here. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to basically do one tooth per side. So if I can get a good hold of this, we're going to come up through the front and then down around the back. And we're going to glue it every time we pass over that center section. Otherwise, it may unfold on you when you take it off the comb. You don't need a lot of glue, just enough to kind of hold it. I'm going to push this down to this edge here. Okay, so you're going to do the same thing on the other side. You're going to go up next to the previous loop there, and then you're going to come back around that tooth, and then again you're going to glue it on the back. I don't think I've got that very even. And you want to glue it always over those same two teeth, which is right here. You pull it to the other side, give it a little press. Now the further you get away from the center, the easier this gets, because it gives you a little bit more of your paper to work with. So again, we go up and through, over and back. And I have to keep looking here to see where I put my glue. So you pull it down. So you're going to go right up next to this previous loop, and then around that tooth and back down around behind, whoops, the back, where we're going to go to the other side, and we'll glue it in the middle. And you can make as many of these loops as you want. How many did we do on this other one? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So we've got 2 per side so far. Doesn't look like my glue is holding. So let's try that again. Or maybe I forgot to glue it. At this point, who knows? Alright, so we're going to go up next to the previous loop, down around that tooth and back behind. So that gives me 3 on that side and 2 on this other side. So we'll do a couple more. And like I said, you can do as many as you want. I did 4 on the test samples I did, and that seemed to be a good size for this project. Okay, so down, up, around, back. Just looking where to put my glue. And we're going to go down, come back up around, and back. And one strip does seem to work really good for teeth that are spaced this far apart. If they're closer together or further apart, you might need more or less of a strip. But you just glue those together to make them longer, and you can always cut it off at the end. Okay, so this is our last one, and we'll have some extra on here, so I'm just going to add a little bit of glue, And then we'll trim that off once that glue sets. So if you were to use the same length strip on this end of the comb where the teeth are closer together, you would get more loops out of it. So it would probably, I don't know that it would end up being longer than this piece right here, but it would be fuller. You would have more loops. The only way to know for sure about the length of it would be to test it out. We're not doing that just yet. All right, so I've snipped that off. We're going to gently pull this off, so in case something didn't glue sufficiently, we don't want it to just unfurl. All right, so in that one, what we did was we actually flipped it around backwards. Well, I say backwards, it's not necessarily backwards, but we're flipping it around so that the long ends meet in the middle, like that. And you'll basically just push that loop in. It's going to just kind of flatten out. Okay, so where's my little needle tool? Here it is. Let's try it with this. I think that might help me get a better pinch point. Okay, so I glued, like I said, I glued the longer loops together before, but I'm wondering if I really need to do that or if I can leave them unglued. No, I think I do want to glue them together. So let me try and pick that back up and just add some glue down the middle here. And you want to gently just kind of pinch that together. You don't want to hold it too tight because you don't want to crush your loops, but you do want it to stick together. So if you've got a pair of tweezers, the reverse tweezers that'll just hold it for you, that's a good way to go. So after that, we're going to probably, obviously we'll put another embellishment here in the center, whether it be another flat back pearl or a gemstone or something else. We'll determine that later. I think that's good. So then that will fit in like so. Looks a little odd to me. Something got folded differently or pinched differently. Yeah, it'll be all right. Once it gets glued in there, hopefully it'll flatten back out the way it's supposed to. So you'd want to make 6 of those and then glue them all together. So I'm going to pause here while I make my other 5 because I've only made that one so far. And then we'll see if we want to add anything else to it. All right, so we'll be right back. All right, we are back. I have finished making all the extra little pieces. Now we're just going to glue everything together. So I'm going to start by sliding these out. These ones I just made, we're going to move them out of the way for now, and we're going to glue again our 6 pieces together. So I have found that if I try to do them in pairs, I don't get as good a looking as star, so I'm going to do them in groups of 3 by pulling the middle one out and then gently trying to slide it back in. And then I'll do the other side. Very gently. Trying to keep that one straight with the one across from it. Okay. Just put a little bit of pressure on it. Yeah, let's glue's not holding. I just didn't do a good enough job gluing. So there we go. I think we're okay. So put some more on here. And get this guy back in here. And here we go. That looks pretty good. I'll still have to glue those two sides together, but I want this glue to take hold first. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday or not. Oh, see, that one didn't stick. Neither did that one. I used, my white strips this time are actually a very lightweight or medium weight cardstock. I had used paper in the past and it works okay, but I wanted something a little stiffer because the way I was making the outside of the shape here. I'm just trying to kind of reposition everything. Not sure I'm doing a good job of it. That looks kind of okay. It's not perfect, but if these three are set, they're at least stuck together, so that's good. We're going to go ahead and put some glue on here. And then we'll just kind of push them together. Yeah, I did get stuff a little twisted somehow along the way. Is that better? I think it is. Oops, it was. Okay, we'll leave that just for a moment to let that dry. And I don't know if it's because it's kind of got a bit of a finish. It's not shiny per se, but maybe that's why the glue isn't drying as quickly. I haven't glued those in yet either, but I'll do that later. Alright, so now let's start up here. We're going to just take and add some glue up the side down by the tip here. Try not to get too much because I don't want it stuck to my paper here. And we're just going to gently ease that in. Okay, and we're just going to do that for all 6. So these are really simple little snowflakes. There's not a lot of components to them. You don't need a lot of extra tools. Like I showed you in the last video, you can just use something like this, whoops, there we go, to make your outside frame, and then any kind of comb will work to make the pieces that I'm gluing in now. That's tipped a little bit, but so you don't, like I said, you don't need a lot of extra stuff to make these. I cut mine with the Cricut, but I've seen people use paper shredders. You want to make sure it's the right kind of paper shredder because it can cut them, cross cut them, which will make tiny little pieces, and they won't be usable. For instance, the paper shredder I have will not work, but I have used a pasta machine. My strips are a little wider when I use the pasta machine. I like working with the 1/8 inch, but the pasta machine I believe was a 1/4 inch, and it worked good. You just cut your 8.5 and 11s, or 8.5 by 11 in half, so that they're 8.5 by 5.5, and then it'll just slide right through the pasta machine. You need the noodle maker attachment. I don't know what it's called, but mine came with it, so I don't actually have never used it for pasta. Mine was for polymer clay. Alright, that's our last one. You can use a paper cutter, like a paper trimmer. That's a lot of work, but you can do it that way. If you're just, sitting there with nothing to do, maybe watching television or something. It's a, easy way to make your strips. You don't have to have a lot of expensive tools to do this type of craft. Quilling can be a very inexpensive way to go. Now, if you don't want to cut your strips, you can certainly buy them. They're fairly inexpensive even to buy. The tools can start to get pricey when you get enough of them, but okay guys, that's our snowflake. So this was the one from video number 1, which is a little bit fuller. This is the one for video 2, and I don't know, I might still add something to it. I don't know what though. I could put a little dot. I have all these little end cuts here. Let's see. I could make little balls to glue to the ends of each of the points. Let's see. I don't want a big hole in the center, so let's try it with our needle tool. Might be a little out of practice with this. Let's see. Oh, we're going pretty good. Okay, I'm just going to find the end here and add a little bit of glue. There it is. I should have done that while it was still on the needle, but I didn't. So you could add, didn't get that glued down very well either. Try that. That's better. So you could add a little dot to the end of each point, like so. Or you could, let's see, if I can grab a hold of this, you could slide them down around in here to make it a little fuller in there. That actually doesn't look bad. So I'll make a few more of these. I'll use up my strips here, which are all roughly the same size, and then we'll play with it a little bit more. Alright, we are all done. I've gone in and glued in these small little coils that I just used these end cuts off of. And so they are tiny because these are only 1.5 inches. I just glued one to either side of this other piece that we had just inserted, and then I added the flat back pearl for the front. So we've got week 1 right here and week 2 right here. So very different and yet similar. So so far I actually think week 1 is my favorite, but week 2 is not bad. And you could stick something more either in the tips where these, if you didn't glue them all the way together, or you could continue adding little coils around or the tip of each point of the star. I had a couple extra because they came out bigger than I wanted, but that's something you could do if you wanted to. So actually you could do anything you want to do, but here we go, week 1 and week 2. So let me know in the comments which one you like better. I'm leaning toward week 1, but I do like week 2. I think it's the extra fullness of week 1 that I like, as well as the Wink of Stella. I just didn't feel like the Wink of Stella was necessarily going to show up on any of this as well, since this was the darker of the blues that I used. But anyway, thanks for joining me, guys. I can't wait to see what we're going to do for week number 3. Till next time, happy crafting.